From the New York City area, welcome to the Badass Counseling Show, where the master badass himself, Sven takes you deep and gives balm for the soul, baby.
Skull! It is great to have you here on the Badass Counseling Show. My name is Sven Erlandson. I am the host of this fine mess that we create each week, twice a week. And whether you are joining us from Belgium or Baton Rouge, from South Africa or New South Wales, from Winnipeg to New Brunswick and all points across the U.S. into Mexico and Brazil, it's great to have you here joining us. I'm joined in studio by my dear friend, Casey, and my dearer friend, Rob. The Rocket. Rob, how are you today?
Always your faithful companion, my friend, in a business sort of way.
Not there's anything wrong with it. Yes, thank you, Rob. It's great to have you here. Rob, we've got a guest today, a young woman named Trixie. Tell us about Trixie, if you will.
Happy to, Sven. Here's what we got from Trixie. She said, I am in so deep and I don't know what to do. I'm a 29-year-old single mother and I have been in a relationship with a man whom I truly love. I'm sure you understand what I mean by I have never had a human connection like this. We've been together for just over 2 years, and in between, there has been abuse, domestic violence, cheating, lying, and so on. But we cannot stop coming back to each other. We want to be better, and we want to do better for ourselves and each other. I got this man out of an 11-year prison sentence for 4 felonies after putting hands on me one night. I'm so aware of the situation, but I don't know how to move about it. I'm so fucking lost. My job just went on temporary shutdown, so I am on very limited funds, and this is creating its own issue within our home. I am running in circles, and I don't know how to just stop.
Trixie, great to have you on the show.
Hi.
Well, let's go ahead and dive right in. I'm so fucking lost, you say. What is the most disorienting part of your life, or what are you struggling with the absolute most, if you were to put it in one sentence or less, Trix?
Walking away and staying away.
So that assumes you want to walk away and stay away. Let me ask you this question. If I were to force you to give me a percentage, what percentage do you want to walk away and stay away, and what percentage do you not want to? And it has to add up to 100%. What percent yes and what percent no?
80-20.
80% yes, okay. And just out of curiosity, what accounts for the 20% that does not want to walk away?
Honestly, I think it's mostly empathy and just the fact that, like, when this has happened before, when I've asked him to leave and he is removed because he doesn't leave on his own, I feel bad because he eventually tries to reach out and then starts saying, oh, I've been, having to stay here or with who, and the dog he got me that he takes every time he leaves, it's so hard for him to find a spot with him and the dog. And
all right. So the two reasons you've given me, for why you don't want to walk away and stay away are empathy and that you feel bad for him. So basically, empathy. Yeah, they're both sort of the same thing there. That's all right. And so what causes you then? So he gives you a little bit of a sob story, or shares his struggles with you, and then you go back, or you let him back. Is that right?
Yeah, more so. It's kind of just him pity partying himself, and it's just like I'm the person with the house in their name, and every place we've ever gotten has been because I have done the initial getting of the place and the funds and doing everything, and like he got taken off of the house that we're currently in because he just can't he can't act respectfully to me, and I can't have my house taken from me and my child.
Oh, of course not. So let me ask you this question. If we were to tweak that equation a little bit, that part about the reason you don't want to walk away and stay away, you said it's basically empathy. So empathy, feel bad, and pity party. If we were to just play for a minute, if we were to play and assume that fear is part of the equation, fear is part of the reason you don't want to walk away and stay away. If it were part of the equation, what would be your biggest fear in walking away and staying away?
I think I fear being in another relationship like that, where I let and allow someone to keep disrespecting me over and over again, because I'm not afraid to be alone. At this point, I'm craving peace, and I'm craving to just get this toxicity away from me.
Okay. And so the fear is that I might choose another relationship like that. And then you said that I might allow or let someone treat me that way. Well, then you sort of open the door then to the notion that you must be allowing and letting someone treat you that way now, and all the way along. If you were to speculate, what would you say is the biggest reason that you allow and let someone to treat you that way? What's the fear that causes you to allow someone to do that? If there were a fear that causes you to allow someone to abuse you, and I'm not shaming you at all, okay? I get it. I've been in abusive situations where I was being abused. I get that. Worked with tons of clients. So there's no shame. But I am asking the question because you raised those two words. You brought up the word allow and you brought up the word let. So what do you think the fear is that causes you to do that? If there were a fear, what do you think it might be? The fear that if what, then what will happen?
I don't know. If I stand up for myself, it's going to get violent. Mm-hmm. It'll get worse. It'll just escalate because I've seen it happen. And it has happened firsthand. I definitely have allowed him to walk on me and to push me around and get what he wants over me, afraid to have that conflict and afraid to have that interaction because he does get loud. He yells, breaks things the whole night.
And that's scary. And so is it reasonable to assume that the first time you allowed him to treat you poorly, it wasn't on something giant like, gee, you just punched me in the face and I'm never going to allow it again. You know, I'm afraid because then I'm afraid to stand up to you and shut you down because you might punch me twice. Wouldn't it be reasonable to assume that the first time he disrespected you or hurt your feelings, it was more along the lines of, you know, he maybe said something hurtful or he maybe ignored you for a day? Or would it be reasonable to assume that when it started smaller?
Really small.
Really small, right. Okay, so then isn't it reasonable then to assume that the trick moving forward, should you choose to ever get in a relationship again, which you're 29, so it's a reasonable notion that at some point you will, but the longing for peace, hey, I get it. Take as long as you need there. I hear you. But it's reasonable to assume you would get in a relationship again. And so then if it were to start small, that's where it gets nipped in the bud. The sort of the conflagration, the increase of all of it is because I'm, to use your word, allowing. I'm letting when it's small. And so then that raises the question. I can tell you really know yourself well and you're doing great. So let me ask you this question. What do you think was driving you that caused you to overlook or not want to see or ignore those small, let's just call them red flags, those small red flags, or those small things that sort of hurt or felt yucky, to use a kid word? What do you think it was? If there were a fear driving that, what do you think the fear was that caused you to sort of ignore them or hope they'd go away or what have you?
I remember like the first kind of instance of like this feeling and like noticing this on, you know, in our interaction. I was just really shocked and I was really taken back. I had no idea that he acted like that.
Okay. And so what went on inside of you? What went on inside of you when you saw that? What went on inside of you? What did you think, or what did you feel on your body, or in your gut, or in your fingers, or what did you feel, or what thoughts went through you in that moment, or in the time immediately after that?
I felt embarrassed. I felt like ashamed, and I don't even know why I felt ashamed, but I felt like there had to be something that I did wrong for him to be in like this mood and talk to me this way, because he'd never been ugly to me before. This is the first instance of ugliness.
All right.
And I was just like, what did I do?
What did I do? All right. So isn't it interesting? Isn't it interesting right there, Trixie, that he says something hurtful? Now, just out of curiosity, in that first time, was his volume elevated, or was it an elevation of the intensity of his words? Like, oh, I can't believe you did that. Well, I didn't just elevate my voice in volume right there, but I did elevate in intensity. I can't believe you did that, Trixie. What are you thinking? Versus, I can't believe you did that. Okay, one is volume, the other is intensity, or maybe it was just the words themselves. You dirty little bastard, Sven, or, how was it conveyed that made you feel bad, or what was it?
It was the physical actions, like slamming a car door and acting like speaking to me and being around me was like being taken out of your paycheck. Like it was straining you somehow. And I'd been at work all day. I just seen you for 30 minutes and you're being a dick. Like, totally out of nowhere. It's just like,
okay.
What?
Got it. Okay. And isn't it fascinating then that with his physical actions and his sort of attitude, like you're straining him, isn't it fascinating? You got embarrassed. So instantly you're feeling like, to use your words, what did I do? Isn't it fascinating that when someone comes on strong to you, you instantly shift into, I must have caused this. I must be at fault. Do you find that a little bit interesting?
I find that very interesting.
And I hear a little giggle there. What's behind the giggle, or what is it about that sort of makes you smile, or what does it make you think, or talk to me?
That comes across in so many different relationships I've been through, friendships. It could be like a parental relationship. If anyone shows any just shittiness, and they don't have to say anything like you did this or that. It's just if that is being conveyed towards me, it's got to be I did that somehow. I take it on myself 100% of the time.
So it must be my fault. I must have done something to cause this. Okay. All right. Mm-hmm. Well, and so is it possible that then in this case where he got physical actions and, like you were straining him, like you were just really, you're pissing me off, lady. Is it possible that you didn't do anything wrong? Is that possible?
I definitely feel like it is possible. I didn't do things wrong, and I was trying to just do what I needed to at that time.
Mm-hmm. And is it reasonable to assume that in that particular case, while I don't know the specifics and we don't really need to go into them, but is it reasonable to assume that his response in retrospect was that he was feeling butthurt, or he wasn't getting his way, or he was kind of in retrospect being a fucking baby? Am I in the ballpark, or without getting into a lot of details?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Big baby sort of thing. And yet you assume that you were at fault.
Yeah.
And right. And so what that inclines me to think is that you have something going on in you that doesn't analyze the situation, that can't sort of step out of the emotion of it. And you said, I got basically hit with embarrassment and shame. And so that overwhelms you. And your instant thought is, I must have done something wrong. And it's almost like you have some instant fucking default inside of you, some instant switch that gets flipped. And the second someone, just comes on hard to you in a bad way, that switch gets flipped and I'm bad. I did something wrong. I know I did. It's almost like you're fucking pre-programmed to believe I am bad. And I heard a little giggle there. Are we in the ballpark?
Yeah. Like you put it into words. That's the jumbled up feelings that are in my head. That is it. Like, yeah.
Jumbled feelings. And those jumbled feelings are already there before he ever even said that. What happens then when he puts you down, or when he gets a little scary or whatever? It basically it's like a match to some firecrackers. His mood, his words are the match or the lighter, and they light the fuse, and all of a sudden, bang, 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 except the fuse is really short. So the second he fucking says it, bang, 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 you got a whole thread of firecrackers going off inside you, and you can't think straight, you can't see straight. It's loud, it's pulsing in your fucking head. Your heart's beating about 1,000 fucking miles an hour. Your pits start to sweat. You get really fucking nervous. You start to shy away.
Yeah.
You go into sensory fucking overload, don't you?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Exactly. And when we go into sensory overload, when we have all of these emotions going on inside of ourselves, our ability to see a situation for what it is becomes corrupted. We can't, which is why in that moment, you aren't able to see, wait a minute, I didn't fucking do anything here. Listen, honey, I love you, but you need to just go in the other room, or I need to go in the other room because I don't want to be around you if you're going to act this way. I haven't done anything wrong here. I just came home from work. I'm happy to listen to whatever's going on with you, but I need you to settle down first because nobody gets to talk to me that way. Okay, that would be a proper boundary enforcing response. But because you got all these firecrackers going off in your brain and your heart's beating a mile a minute, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Wait, am I in the ballpark?
Yeah, pretty close.
Okay, so let me ask, what are you thinking? What are you feeling right now?
I agree with you so much because I've had those moments where like I will stand up to him and I will kind of put that boundary there and put the brakes on. I'm like, hey, no, it's not going to happen like that. Like, you're not going to talk to me like that. You're not going to, fuck me around and treat me like this. And then it's like, it kind of sustains him for a second and then he gets drunk or whatever else. And it's just everything that he's ever disliked about me, I've ever done just comes out. I'm, bitch, whore, you name it. And then it's like, I asked him, because he's not on my house, he's not on my lease, any of my utilities, nothing. I say, I don't want this. Can you please just leave and we can talk about it later or whatever, but you need to go. And then he will just like sit there, cross his legs and be like, I'm not going anywhere. And then tell me, call the fucking cops. And then now I'm calling the cops to have you removed. And now you're going to be gone for a week. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what an ugly cycle. And I'm betting that is a cycle that has perpetuated itself many times over the years you two have been together.
Yep.
And how many years have you two been together, by the way?
About 2.5.
2.5 years. All right. So you've seen it a lot of times in basically 30 months, 2.5 years. And so that's you don't need me to tell you, but that's not a good sign. So what's happening then is in those times where you stand up for yourself, it's like in the relationship. Let me ask you this. Would you say there is a power balance or a power imbalance generally in your relationship with him? Imbalance. So then who has what percent of the power? Just roughly on any given day, roughly what is the distribution of power?
He usually has most, if not all of the power.
Give me a percentage roughly.
I want to say like 85, 95 in between there.
85 to 90.
Things don't go his way. It's over for everyone.
If things don't go his way, it's over for everyone. All right. And I can see. Yeah. And so let me ask you this. What is it for you? This is a weird question, but what is it for you that's comfortable, that is comfortable about such an extreme power imbalance?
I don't understand that because like I grew up watching like my mother and my stepfather. They were always very equal. Like my stepdad ran his own business. My mom works for the USDA and they've always done, back and forth. No one's ever, more than the other. I don't really know where power imbalance has been seen in my life. Like in that aspect, maybe like myself being a kid, but that is natural because you're a kid and you know better and your parents are supposed to keep you alive. Okay. So,
So it sounds like they had mom and stepdad had an equitable relationship. Just out of curiosity, what was bio dad like? Was he in your life?
Yeah. My parents got divorced when I was like a year old and then he split for like 2 years. He had a meth problem, showed up about when I was 4 or 5, tried to be Disneyland dad, had visitation and very little custody of me, was just kind of all over the place, was couch surfing. And he like had another family when I was 15, screwed that up and is still, struggling and doing drugs to this day.
Just, struggling and doing drugs to this day. And so there's somewhat of a familiarity for you of being around that sort of thing. Let me ask you this. Was he mean? Was he have a volatile temper or anything like that?
Oh, yeah.
Well, kind of there you go a little bit, right?
A little bit, yeah.
It's familiar.
He scared me. He would get loud and it scared me. And so does dude.
That's it. That when you're acclimated to that. And so that's a big part of it. But there's going to be more on that other side with regard to mom and stepdad. Did you feel growing up like by mom and stepdad, did you feel like you were accepted? that you were approved of, that you were seen, that you were heard, that you mattered?
No.
Why?
My stepdad had 2 kids of his own that were my step siblings. One is 3 months older than me, one's 6 years older. And they kept getting in trouble, and they always had all kinds of stuff going on with them throughout our growing up lives. And I was the only one who graduated and got married before I had a kid, and kind of did things a little bit more on the traditional route, kind of how we were raised.
Mm-hmm.
But I was still very much anything I did wrong was tenfold compared to whatever the hell they could do.
So
I was the redheaded stepchild.
Okay, tenfold. And so there was unequal treatment. And so you were used to you grew up with harsh punishments for small crimes or medium crimes.
Mm-hmm.
And so then presumably if you grow up that way, you're afraid of then getting the punishments and so forth. Would that be accurate?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you were treated like you were a lesser citizen. You were the, redheaded stepchild, to use that old phrase. Okay. So you were conditioned to believe that you're not worth much. You tried to be a good girl and do it the right way. So you were conditioned to do that because you saw all the trouble your step siblings got into, and you were taught to believe that you didn't matter. And is it safe to say Mom allowed that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which then confirms, if my own mom won't stick up for me, so my own mom won't defend me. And why, if they were in an equitable relationship, as you say, why would she allow the fruit of her womb to be mistreated and treated so harshly when it came to punishment? Why would she allow that? If they had an equitable relationship.
I don't know. I know that the divorce between my stepdad and his ex-wife was super ugly, and she would try and be really ugly towards my mother and me when I was a kid. Just very
sure.
Ghetto, if I
okay.
use
And how
that
does
term.
that? Yeah. And how does that relate here?
Yeah.
Because we were talking about your mom.
I don't know, but somehow that is the only thing that pops into my head as to why this correlates in some type of way, or why this behavior would be passed down that way. I don't know.
Well, wait a minute. You said that your stepfather's ex treated your mom and you poorly, or tried to.
Yeah.
Tried to. Did your mom stop it?
She just would be very kind of whatever about it, not try to confront her because it's not worth it.
But she just didn't pause. She wouldn't confront it because it wasn't worth it. Presumably, I don't want to put in the trouble to protect my own daughter, or I fear it getting worse if I do stand up. But she backed down when someone was confronting her and belittling her and making her feel bad. She backed down. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Huh. Sound familiar? We're going to come right back right after this short break.
You've heard Sven talk a lot about his book, There's a Hole in My Love Cup. And that's because Sven hears from his followers a lot about how much the book has helped them. If you're not sure how to handle the issues getting in the way of a better life, you're not alone. And you have a lot of choices. But thousands of readers will tell you that this is a great place to start, by yourself and at your own pace. So go to badasscounseling.com and order There's a Hole in My Love Cup, and you'll have Sven right there with you as you forge your best future. It's totally badass. So get started today.
This show provides soul counseling intended to entertain and inform, and is not medical advice. Now, back to the badass.
Trixie. So we sort of stumbled on something there, that Mom backed down from your stepdad's ex, as stepdad's ex was mean, was not nice, would be rude, or whatever it was. Mom backed down from the fight. Thereby, if the child is watching, and children are always watching, your mother was modeling backing down from a bully. And then I said, sound familiar? And what went on inside of you when we connected those dots?
All the light bulbs.
Tell me.
it just was like literally like bing, 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 bing. Like,
And what did you
we got
think,
a winner.
or what did you feel? What did you think, or what did you feel?
Almost a sense of like, what the fuck am I doing?
Okay. Right. Although you've had that thought and feeling before, you've probably thought that about yourself a million fucking times. What am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? So mom didn't stand up for you, and obviously stepdad didn't stand up for you. He didn't shut his act down, which almost implies he was afraid of her. Okay. Anyway.
Yeah.
So what you're getting modeled for you is no one's protecting you. Stepdad's not, mom's not, or is that not accurate?
No, that is beyond accurate.
All right.
I just never really, I guess, put it into that chain of thinking.
Precisely. Sometimes all we got to do is unpack shit a little bit, and it's like, oh my God, that's where it came from. And so the underlying message that the child gets is, I'm not being protected. The child is experiencing it, even though a child would never use words like protected, not at
Right.
6 or 8, but they get the message.
Right.
It's loud and clear. I don't feel safe, and no one's doing a damn thing about it. No one is protecting me. And so then what the child's brain does is converts that from no one's protecting me to I'm not worth protecting. If it happens again and again and again, clearly I'm not worth protecting. And there we have the core belief of I must be at fault. It must be my fault. I'm shit. I'm not worth protecting. My own mother won't even stand up for me. I must be dog shit. It must be my fault. And furthermore, you are conditioned by stepdad that your sins are tenfold, to use your word, your sins are tenfold worse. So you were already being conditioned by stepdad, and not just in not defending you, but in his punishing you far worse, that the child will then believe, I must be tenfold worse. I must be a badder person. The child's brain thinks. And again, mom wasn't defending you, thereby further conveying the message, I'm not worth defending. And dad is a fucking dick, hothead. Bio dad is a hothead. So you are getting it from 3 sides.
Yeah.
Well, 4 sides if you include stepdad's ex. You're getting it from all sides in one way or another that you ain't worth a shit.
That just feels really heavy. It's like, I haven't been able to put that into like a phrase or words, but I don't feel like I'm worth standing up for myself, or I'm worth all of those things.
Right. Just out of curiosity, how old's your mom?
55.
55. And stepdad?
53.
Now let me ask you, you said you are a single mother. 1 kid, 12 kids. How many do you have?
1.
1. Okay. I didn't know. Nothing wrong with 12. My dad had 6 kids, and he ended his career as a chaplain for about 12, 15 years at the Veterans Hospital in Minneapolis. And when sometimes these vets, dad would call them sometimes the crusty old vets, some of the really old ones, they'd kid him or whatever, especially when they found out he had 6 kids. They'd say, so, chaplain, are you a careless Catholic or a promiscuous Protestant? 6 kids, right? Anywho, so back to you. So we've got this problem of you being not worth standing up for, and you said you're a proud parent of 1 child. How old is your child?
He's 5.5.
5.5. All right. He is 5.5. Okay. Great age. Love that age. So he's in kindergarten this year, probably, right?
TK, but he'll be in kindergarten. It's his last week of school this week.
Far out. All right. I'll bet he's looking forward to summer.
Oh, yeah. Good times.
Awesome. Let me ask you, just out of curiosity, your lovely 5.5-year-old boy, I'm just going to randomly choose a name. I don't know the name of your child, but just to make it easier, I'm going to call your son Andy. All right. Like Raggedy Ann and Andy. All right. So Andy. Okay, fair enough. So let me ask you then, what is it that Andy could do of anything on earth? What is it that 5.5-year-old could do that would justify him believing he's a piece of shit?
Nothing.
Your tone just changed. Why did your voice tone change there?
That's my little baby. He's not a piece of shit.
Exactly. Exactly. And yet, at what age were you when your mother and stepdad got together or got married?
Oh, shit. I was his age. Exactly his age.
Right. So, and that was a total guess on my part, but it had to be somewhere around there because you said your dad left when you were basically 1 year old. So it's reasonable to assume mom, found someone new in a, year or two, whatever. Okay. So you were roughly his age. So then you were roughly very early on or at some point around your son's age or shortly thereafter, or at some point thereafter, getting the message that you are a piece of shit. I mean, we've basically established, actually your words were, I ain't worth a shit. You got that message. And so just out of curiosity, so let's fast forward the tape on Andy's life a little bit. Let's say Andy is 7.5. No, let's go wild. Let's say he's 9. What could a 9-year-old possibly do that would justify him believing he ain't worth a shit?
Nothing.
Right.
He's a kid.
Precisely. He's a sweet, rambunctious, steal a cookie, playful, laughter-filled, grumpy when he's tired little kid. Just like every other little kid. There's not a damn thing they could do that would justify them hating on themselves. And yet, at your son's age, or at some point not too long thereafter, you began to believe that you were a piece of shit. So just out of curiosity, why are the rules different for you? If any other kid at 5.5 or 9 or 11 there'd be no possible justification for them believing they're a piece of shit. Why are the rules different for you? What was so fucking god awful about you that it was justified that you believed you were a fucking piece of shit? Why?
I don't have an answer for that.
Exactly. There wasn't a damn thing wrong with you. It was a fucking lie. It was a fucking lie taught to you by irresponsible adults. Taught to you by adults who had their own agendas, their own fears, and they did not protect physically, and they did not protect emotionally this wonderful little 5.5-year-old, 9.5-year-old, 3.5-year-old, wonderful little girl who was smart and creative and playful and full of laughter and would, sneak extra licks of, mom's ice cream cone or whatever it was. Rambunctious, snotty at times, as any kid is. But there was nothing intrinsically wrong with you. Do you see that? Do you fucking see that?
Yeah, I do.
That's right. So in other words, the kid was wonderful. You were wonderful, Trixie. You were beautiful. You were fantastic. And you were taught a lie. So let me ask you this. Which is true? See, either mom and dad are good and love me, and therefore, if I'm not getting love, I'm bad. Or mom and dad aren't good or don't love me, and therefore the reason I'm not getting love has nothing to do with me. It's about them. So either you're going to tell me that there was something wrong with that child that justified them not being protected, them being spoken down to, them being yelled at, them being punished tenfold worse. Either there's some justification because mom and dad are good and love me, or there isn't a justification for it. And they weren't good and or they didn't love me. So which is it? Who was in the wrong? Who was bad? Was it you or was it the adults? It had to be one or the other. Why weren't you getting love? It had to be one or the other. So which was it? I'm curious, Trixie, which was it?
It was parents.
Precisely. You were taught things that no person, but no child should ever be taught. There wasn't a goddamn thing wrong with you. That's what you should have been taught. But you were taught the opposite by their negligence, by their just horrible not defending you. Your own mother. Maybe she's a wonderful person. I have no idea who your mother is today. But back then, she didn't defend you. Your stepdad treated you unfairly. Your own father raged on you. No wonder you feel like it's always your fault. It's always my fault. I ain't worth a shit. If you were to just close your eyes just for a minute, just close your eyes for a minute, Trixie, and just quiet yourself. Even take a deep breath or two. I'm going to close my eyes with you. Sort of down at the root of who you are, Trixie. What percent do you love you? Just love who you are. How you laugh, how you act, and how you try to be with people and how strong and you are, yet how soft you are. What percent do you love you?
Like 75.
75? All right, you can open your eyes now. 75%. That means that somewhere down deep in you, where the eternal spark, the divine spark burns, you see your goodness, you feel it, you know it's there. But your default in so many situations in life, you have been conditioned to default to basically just the opposite. That I 75% suck or worse. Now, my listeners can't see it, but I can because I have you on this video call. I can see that you're tearing up a bit. What are you feeling right this minute? Give me a feeling word.
Just kind of sad. Because I've always felt like I've wanted to love myself. And I never really have.
And why do you think that is, that I never really have?
I don't know, because I take on everything from everyone else. I just flip everything onto myself. And when someone tells me I'm, disappointing, I believe it.
Right. And the truth is, you take it on and you believe all that crap because that's what you were conditioned to believe. That was all the raw sewage, all of the garbage, all of the manure that got pumped into you. Yet isn't it fascinating that even though that's in there, when we just quiet you for a minute, down deep inside you, there's love for you. There's love for you. That says that A, you are able to access your deep, authentic self, and not only access it, but down there, you really do believe in you, which says to me that when I had you close your eyes, when I had you breathe deeply, when I had you sort of center yourself, I was plunging you down through all the layers of accumulated crud and shit, and that you could tap into your authentic self, which means all that accumulated crud and shit is all those messages that I ain't worth a shit and you're no good and you're stupid or you're too tall or you're too smart or you're too skinny or you're too fat or you're too blah, 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 you're not enough. All those messages are what you had to plunge through. So then the task is to get those out, And that's, what we're trying to do here, but also what the book is for. There's a hole in my love cup and so forth. But the fact that you say 70 to 75%, the fact that you say that, because I've had clients who say 0%, Sven, 5%, no lie. In fact, it's somewhat regular. The fact that you can tap into that is such a wonderful thing. And so your task, Trixie, is to be deliberate. You have to begin journaling, and you have to keep them safe, by the way, and writing letters that you don't send. And I would strongly recommend that you get the book if you don't already, because that's going to take you down there and help you do what we did today. What we did today was we went searching for origins of messages inside of me. Oh, like when somebody gets mad at me, you know what? What did I do? Okay, well, let's find the origin, because that's kind of a crappy message that I would assume it's my fault. And we went backward, and we just started pulling the thread, and then we get all the way back here, and we realized there was nothing wrong with me to begin with, and I was getting all these crappy messages and so forth. If you only do one thing for the rest of your life, Trixie, if you only do one thing, commit yourself. You don't even have to try to find yourself. You don't have to try to be strong. All you have to do is commit yourself to getting out all that crud. Do you want to know why? Because under that crud and shit is your strength. It's your natural belief in self. It's the one that won't be afraid to elevate anymore. You know what? I'm going to escalate my power. I'm not afraid of you anymore. Or maybe I am, but I'm going to do this anyway because damn it, I'm worth it. And I'm so sick of this shit. And that no, that anger and that no, that's you finding your voice. Because inside of anger is the word no. No, this doesn't feel good. No, I won't let you treat me this way. No, this isn't okay. No, I don't want to do that. And inside of no is the word I. I don't want to do this. This isn't fair to me. No. So you finding your anger, you finding your no is you finally plunging down through the crud and shit and finding your I. But the commitment has to be to get that crud and shit out, because then your authentic self and that I will naturally bubble up. Any final questions for me, Trixie?
Oh, I don't think so.
All right, fair enough. What I would like you to do, if you would, just stick around for a few minutes after the show. We'd like to talk to you just a little bit more after you catch your breath, and we let our advertisers do their thing, all right?
Okay.
All right, thanks. It's been great having you on the show, Trixie. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
You betcha.
Thank you for having.
And to all of our listeners out there around the world, what a fascinating story. And this was a great example of a person just opening up and being willing to look at things differently and not being closed into old patterns and thoughts. Rob, any thoughts on this?
Sven, I'm sorry to say this is such a familiar tale, but what I would ask you to do, and I'm not going to say in one sentence or less, is just what would you say to parents to try to avoid this?
And avoid what specifically, Rob?
What happened to Trixie?
Yeah, it honestly, two things. One, and this is a real broken record, and you've heard me say it more than anyone, Rob, and that is you got to heal your own shit. You got to heal your own childhood. If you can do it before you start parenting, all the better. But you have to get out the pain, the fears, and the bullshit beliefs you were taught about yourself before going into parenting. Because as we saw with Trixie's parents, their shit was bleeding out into the children, and our decisions become laden with it, or laced with it, or they outright drive it. Are the pains of our own past and the messages we were taught about ourselves. So even in Trixie's case, even though or because she had all this crap from her past, I guarantee it's been bleeding out into her own child. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I mean, there's just no way it couldn't if she's not even protecting herself. It's reasonable to assume she's conveying the message, I don't matter. And so the two things people can do, parents can do, is one, heal your own past. And then the other thing, what happens is once you do that is, as we talk about in sports, the game slows down and you're able to be much more in the moment. We began with Trixie that she would lose the moment. Those firecrackers would start going off when she would get charged with emotion. Well, what causes us to get charged with emotion is all this old conditioning that's still in there. Those are the firecrackers that gets put to a match in somebody else's actions, and then it all goes haywire, and that's when we bleed and bleed and bleed onto the kid.
I loved what Trixie said, that all the light bulbs went off at once when she understood this.
Yeah.
That was great.
That was a good image. So for all of you listening in around the world, it's great to have you here, especially our Canadian friends and our friends in the UK and in the deep south of the United States and way out in the far west. It's been great to have you on the show. On behalf of KC over in the booth and Rocket Rob right next to me, have a kick-ass day.
The Badass Counseling Show is strictly copyrighted. No copies may be made without the express written consent of the Badass Counseling Show, LLC. The Badass Counseling Show is produced by Karen Camparelli and Robert H. Friedman. Executive producer Sven Erlandson. Original music by two-time Emmy Award-winning composer Trevor Morris. Have a kick-ass day.